If you're seeing this tape, please, for the love of God, save me before I end up like him. But how did I get here? Well, to answer that question, we need to go back to a simpler time. A time of culture. A time of elegance. Grab your fucking cherry push pops, cause we're going back to the 1990s.
And everything can work.
Back.
Welcome. You've got mail.
March 31st, 1998. Blizzard Entertainment is still a small indie company. They release a game called Starcraft. It's a success. 1.5 million successes. Best-selling PC game of the year. But there's a small problem. The game is really hard and only Koreans can properly play it. It makes Dark Souls look like Hello Kitty Island Adventure. Still 51 million potential users though, but Blizzard wants more. So Blizzard has to come up with a solution. How do we make this game more accessible, they ask. The answer, StarEdit. It was pretty cool. StarEdit allowed people to create their own unique games and maps within the StarCraft engine, and create people did. One such map was called Aeons of Strife, created by Aeon64. Wow. The game was the antithesis to StarCraft, so it was fun. Rather than managing large armies and pools of resources, players controlled one unit and focused on defending their base from waves of computer-controlled creeps. There are no opposing sides, just 4 players versus the computer. But from this map, you can see the bones of what would eventually become the MOBA genre. This was a major departure from what StarCraft was, as this featured more RPG elements and less RTS. But as every RPG player knows, playing versus the computer is boring as shit, and so sadly, Aeons of Strife never gained massive popularity. July 3rd, 2002. Blizzard releases Warcraft 3 and has once again changed the game. 1 million units sold in the first month, breaking records. Pretty good. What made Warcraft fresh and unique for its time was the polymerization of the RTS and RPG genre. Compared to Starcraft, Warcraft 3 was just some kiddie shit. One less button to press, one less army to control, and one more step away from being a pure RTS. So what gamers really want? I mean, who wants to sweat their ass off for an hour inducing carpal tunnel when they can just repeatedly tap 2 buttons and win? It can't really be understated how revolutionary this concept was for 2002. Blizzard was still at the top of their game, still untainted by stockholder expectations and Activision. The inclusion of RPG elements like spells and heroes proved to be significant, but the skill cap was still quite high. Remember StarEdit from about 30 seconds ago? Well, Warcraft's world editor took that shit to the next level, with more stuff. Units, walls, didgeridoos, and doobly-doos. I don't really know what I'm talking about. And from this more sophisticated editor, surprise surprise, more sophisticated custom games could be made. Tower defenses, Footman Frenzy, Lope, naked girls, oh no, that's a penis, you name it, you could find it on Warcraft 3's custom game menu. Amid the frenzy of development, one man had an idea. Holy shit. What if you brought Aeon of Strife to Warcraft, and instead of people playing against robots, you had people against people? What could possibly go wrong? And he called it Defense of the Don't sue me, Blizzard. Or Dota for short. But who was this mystery man? Perhaps some genius sent back from the future to save gaming. Maybe a robot himself, hell-bent on humanity's destruction through game addiction. No, it's just a normal guy named Yule. But this normal guy created quite the abnormally good custom game. Inspired by Aeons of Strife and a custom game called Valley of Descent, Yule created this first version of Dota. If Aeon of Strife was the bones of the MOBA genre, Yule's Defense of the Ancients was the blood and guts. This is really where it all started, and the concept of a MOBA began to take form. July 1st, 2003. 1 year after the release of Reign of Chaos, Blizzard releases an expansion, The Frozen Throne. New campaign, new units, new terrain, new players, more success. The Frozen Throne just continued to build on the map editor legacy that Reign of Chaos had established. With the moderate success of Defense of the Ancients, Mr. Yule is feeling pretty good. He's feeling pretty confident. Dare I say, cocky? Yule endeavors to create the original Dota 2, but with a small twist. Yule sat there, thinking to himself, we need to be bigger. We need to be better. But how? And in that moment, a blinding light struck him down, and from the light appeared the face of Blizzard. And it said, just add more shit and hope they come back. So Ewell spends over a year developing Dota 2, Thirst for Gamma, and completely changes the concept of Dota 1. The map was now vertical, and instead of 3 lanes, there were 5. Creeps drop various orbs of color, which could be collected and brought to the well of Gamma at the center of the map to buff items in your inventory. It's too ambitious and convoluted, and that's saying something. Ewell had tweaked too much of the winning recipe. In Dota 2, Thirst for Gamma never takes off like its predecessor. Ewell's hard work was for naught, and in his shame, Ewell disappears into the void, never to be seen or heard from again. But wait, Ewell has one more trick up his sleeve. Ewell makes the game's code open source for all to use and build upon. Zero to hero. Neo. Jesus. Ewell sacrifices himself so that Dota may live on. Now that Ewell's code was open to the public, others started getting in on the action. Tons of Dota variants and spin-offs began to form, all with their own unique heroes and ideas. The great Dota schism had occurred, and it had become the wild, wild west. Anything goes. If you can open a world editor, you can make a Dota map. Heroes based on video game characters, movie characters, television, you name it, we've got it. The more absurd and broken, the better. Every time you played Dota, you were downloading a new map and relearning the game. But there's a new problem. How shall I put this? Many people attempting to create their own version of Dota weren't quite as skilled at coding as Ewell. And by not quite as good, I mean they fucking sucked. And so many of the new iterations were littered with bugs, oftentimes making the games unplayable. At this point, the Warcraft 3 custom game scene had exploded with the Frozen Throne, and players had better options to choose from. Uther Party? Yes, please. Footman Frenzy? I like seizures. Serious competition. How could Dota compete when it was fragmented into so many mini communities and iterations? If Dota was going to survive, it needed a new leader. A new Ewell to take up the banner and lead the free peoples of the Warcraft 3 servers away from temptation. And from this Dota orgy of insanity, something beautiful was born. A Dota Renaissance. The Dota Renaissance. For you see, when any idiot on the internet can put their ideas about Dota into the game, you get lots of ideas. Most of them bad. 99% of them bad. And over time, with all these different iterations of Dota, some good ideas actually came forward. Shocking. And since Ewell had disappeared into the void, the crown for leader of the free world editor was open. And from this vacancy, not one, but 2 of the most unlikely candidates emerged. Mayan, and Ragnar. And they had a brilliant idea. What if we took all the best, least dumb heroes from all these Dota maps and just throw them together and see what happens? What could go wrong? They'll call it a bastard. And so it was born. Dota All-Stars. With Dota All-Stars, a reconsolidation of the community could occur, as a clear champion of the schism had emerged. The brief instability had allowed for a beautiful rebirth of the genre, for now that all the best ideas had been brought together, balance and refinement could take precedent. A singular vision could begin pushing the game towards a more balanced and competitive experience. 2004. Around this time, a new legend emerged from the shadows. A man. A being named Ginsu. Ragnar and Mayan had served their purpose, and the gods no longer had need of their service.
You're fired.
Under Ginsu, versions 3 and 4 of Dota All-Stars were created, version 4 being the first to introduce runes, and the raid boss Roshan, named after his bowling ball. Dota is emerging from the Dark Ages and into the modern era. We begin to see balanced-minded heroes take precedent. But Ginsu wasn't satisfied with just introducing balanced heroes. No, he's a smart boy. And so he got his trusty Nerf shotgun out and began wildly firing at all the old, broken shit. Oh, you just summon an entire army and win the game? Die, criminal. Ginsu masterfully turned Dota into a more competitively viable game and was rewarded with an explosion in popularity. Yeah, boy. But fame has its drawbacks. More players equals more expectations equals more responsibilities. Ginsu needed help, but where to look? So Ginsu looks all over. Forums, custom games, 7-Eleven bathrooms. But he found his help in the most unlikely of places, the pond. It's an ice frog joke. It's an ice frog joke. It's an ice. Ginsu enlisted the help of Ice Frog and Nykus. The super team had been created. For from this squad came version 5.84, the most competitively viable patch up to that point. And as the game became more stable, a competitive ecosystem began to emerge. a natural evolution. Competitive tournaments featured version 5.84 as the official map of Dota. 5.84 was so beloved that even long after new versions and updates were released, a substantial portion of the player base continued to play it, in defiance. Imagine trying to introduce neutral items back then.
What about items that randomly drop from creeps?
No.
Warcraft 3 provided much more to Dota than just a powerful world editor. Warcraft 3 had continued to garner critical and popular acclaim, and more gamers flocked to try the game, myself included. And as more people played Warcraft, more people began to explore custom games. And so more people discovered Dota. And as more people discovered Dota, less people played actual Warcraft. And then RTSs died. And with this increasing popularity and the expansion of the World Wide Web, the need to discuss Dota with your fellow gamers was now possible. All this eventually leading to the massively popular website Dota All-Stars, created by Pendragon. This website was your one-stop shop for everything Dota All-Stars. Discuss the game, suggest heroes, suggest items, download the latest versions of the map, learn that you weren't supposed to buy 6 perseverances on every hero. Valuable information. Dota was no longer some trifling mod under the banner of Warcraft 3, but represented a legitimate business opportunity for other game publishers. And where money is to be made, game publishers are to be found. February 8th, 2005. Ginsu had become quite the hot commodity, and eventually 2 men by the name of Rise and Tryndamere approached Ginsu and made him an offer he simply could not refuse. The opportunity to work on a brand new MOBA free of Battle.net, the Warcraft engine, and Blizzard. Equity, probably, and move his career forward and reap the fruits of his labor. A tough decision to make. So Ginsu thinks long and hard about this very tough decision, and then he decides,
Oh, screw you guys.
I'm going to Riot Games.
Ginsu leaves Dota, a shocking development. A vacancy is left behind for IceFrog and Nycus to fill, and almost immediately they begin to implement massive changes. But oh no, Nycus isn't up for the challenge. He's in college, and this hobby has quickly turned sour, as even massive amounts of work were only met with more criticism. Frustrating to say the least. The community doesn't like a lot of the changes, and they want them to know. Shocking. The Dota community is mad about change. Who would have thought? And so Nycus bails, choosing education over Warcraft. What an idiot. And he leaves the entire weight of the project on IceFrog's shoulders, a tough burden to bear. Will IceFrog be able to bear the weight of this heavy crown, or will he buckle under the pressure and scrutiny of gaming's whiniest fanbase? Find out next week on A Moron's History of Dota. Just kidding. We're almost done here, I promise. So IceFrog took his new responsibility, and under his singular vision began to make massive changes to the game. Buybacks, wards, channeling changes, and more. Many in the community believe the game is destined to fail under IceFrog's reign, but this amphibian has balls of steel. IceFrog continues to trust his gut and vision, and gradually refines and updates the game, until, voila, his masterpiece is finished. 6.27, IceFrog's finest creation. He stuck to his guns, and it paid off. Dota was more competitively viable and balanced than ever. IceFrog had won. 6.27 had been the second official competitive version of Dota to be used in tournaments, after the legendary 5.84, eventually culminating in the World Cyber Games 2005, featuring version 6.27b rather than 5.84, IceFrog's first great solo success. Summer 2008. Riot Games is gearing up to release their own MOBA, League of Legends, but they need more help. Ginsu has already joined the party, but Riot has set their sights on another, Pendragon, the creator and administrator of the all-important Dota All-Stars website, the hub of all things Dota. Riot Games approaches Pendragon and asks him to join their squad, and so he does. July 22nd, 2010. Pendragon now has a big decision to make. His employer's game League of Legends is released, and Riot wants to take some of that juicy Dota player base. Dota is ripe for the pickings. He can either gracefully shift maintenance responsibilities of the Dota All-Stars website to another, more invested party, or burn the whole fucking thing down. A tough choice. Honor or greed? The honest choice is clear, so he burns it to the fucking ground. And in its place puts up an ad for League of Legends. Very classy. Yells the Dota community, but the damage is already done. But oh wait, the tomfoolery doesn't end there. Allegedly, Pendragon and the boys over at Riot Games were stealing, or shall I say borrowing hero ideas from the Dota All-Stars forum for use in League of Legends. No. No. Guides lost. Friendships broken. But in all seriousness, the removal of the Dota All-Stars website was a massive blow to the Dota community, because at that time, everything Dota was run through it. But Dota would prove to be more resilient than even Pendragon and Riot could have imagined. With Dota's massive success, League of Legends wasn't the only new competition in town. Other game developers thought, can't be so hard. It's just 2 bases and a few characters, lol. And so people began pumping out shallow, unthoughtful MOBAs with money in mind instead of creativity or balance. We see many MOBAs pop up over the years, but very few, if any, coming close to the success of League, Dota, and briefly, Heroes of Newerth. What made Dota so special was the fact that it was birthed purely out of a joy for game design. No money interest existed, just pure creativity and fun. It also took years of refinement to get to that level of complexity and depth. From here, IceFrog continued to do what he still does to this day. Balance, refine, balance, and eventually burn the whole thing down, so something more beautiful may emerge from the ashes. Allegedly, although I'm not certain this is true, IceFrog will be approached by S2 Games to briefly work on Heroes of Newerth. S2 didn't give IceFrog the creative freedom he so desired, and so he got the fuck out of there. And soon after was approached by Valve, as Gabe Newell wanted him to head up the development of their MOBA, Dota 2, but leaving the whole thirsting for Gamma thing behind. And well, the rest is history. IceFrog went on to turn Dota 2 into one of the most popular video games on the planet, with a dedicated and passionate fanbase. League of Legends would go on to have just a minor success as well. And to this day, MOBAs are still popular, but not quite as trendy as they once were. Battle Royales have become the new hot thing, and MOBAs have since stabilized. And well, that's the story. A story of sacrifice, betrayal, and Koreans. But now it's time for you to go back to the future.
I am ugly.
Well, that's the video. If I got anything wrong or missed something, please be sure to leave very angry comments down below. If you enjoyed, please consider coming over to my channel and supporting me. It would mean a lot. Any and all support is much appreciated. I have a Patreon, things like subscribing and sharing, all are super helpful. I also stream from time to time, and so if you ever get tired of watching good people play, consider coming on over and checking me out. But at the end of the day, just watching is enough. Thank you again, and stay classy. Toodaloo. Poo poo.